Hello, everyone. Welcome to Achieving Success with Olivia Akin. I'm your host, Olivia Akin. Each week, we will discuss the roadmap of achieving your personal and professional success. We give you real-life stories on growing personally and professionally to achieve your life and career goals with the help of some top-notch guests. Today, we are speaking with Stephan K Thieringer. Stephan is the founder and CEO of SKT Global. SKT Global, formerly the Human Innovation Garage, caters to individuals and teams ready to embark on their journey of self-discovery and growth. Stephan's unique methodology combines traditional coaching with neuroscientific behavioral analysis, neurolinguistics programming, and cognitive behavioral therapy. This revolutionary approach offers a roadmap for radical transformation and impact. Whether serving individuals or entire executive teams, Stephan's idiosyncrasy approach provides extensive learning opportunity, a rapid transformation pathway, and personal growth strategies to position clients for the impact they seek. You can find Stephan on LinkedIn by searching Stephan K Thieringer, or by emailing him at STHIERINGER@humaninnovationgarage.com or by going to his website, stephantheeringer.com. Hello, Stephan. It's fantastic having you on the show.
Olivia, it's fantastic to be here. What an introduction, right? It's always this joke, the longer the introduction, then less people know you. But thank you for going in all the details. Great to be here. Thanks for having me.
It's great having you. And let's dive right in. To start off the show, can you tell me what success it means and looks like to you?
How many hours do you have? I think that was the intrigue for me. I think achieving success, if you ask 20 people, you get today probably 21 to 100 different definitions of what success is. I think success, if we think about what COVID really has changed the world of work also to and future of work, we talked before a lot about work-life balance, and people still do, but I think it's work-life integration. Success, I think, is very, very similar. I think the compartmentalization of what success means to individuals in regards to everything from integrity to how they live their life, what their morning routines, evening closeout routines are, and other components which ultimately leave us with a successful life. And that's the way I look at it today. I don't define work and life separately. I think it's an overall, it's like when you walk into a little hut on the mountains when you go skiing and there's like some great tea and some great hot chocolate and it just feels good. It smells good. You can feel the wood firing and you can smell it and it is warm. That feeling, if you get to that feeling in life at whatever stage you're at, for you individually, I think that's success. I think as a society, we tend to tell people when you have this very materialistic and very asset driven, that's when you're successful. And I think, excuse me, I'm going to make the show X-rated now. I think that's bullshit. And I think it is something where we just really need to refocus on ourselves and define it for us very, very personally and not letting other people define what success is. So I'll stop here. I'm sure we have plenty to talk about.
And I think it's important too and that's really why I started the show, is let's identify success for ourselves and not let society make it our norm to take that certain path, because we all can walk into a room, and I'll play on COVID, for example, and now that hut that has tea and coffee can smell very different to me versus you. And that experience, because smell and taste and all that plays into our experiences and how we have memories on things, looks very different to you and I.
100%.
And so I want to talk about and really start off with that self-discovery that you just mentioned. So self-discovery can be challenging to ourselves, but something that's needed to really grow as well. It can be daunting, but needed at the same time. So where have you started when you need to have that self-growth and continuously challenging yourself, even when it can be daunting? Where have you started with that?
I think oftentimes we in ours compare it with the journey of somebody who's an addict. And I think we got to be very honest to ourselves here. In terms of when we start looking at things is usually when we're in the moment of complete crashing.
Mhm.
because we feel that the only way we make it out of this situation or out of that circumstance is if we really start reflecting. But until we get to that point, we brush it off. And I used to be in corporate that guy. I used to be the guy who traveled very, very privileged into international countries, in some of them even given through governments with diplomatic status. And I thought, nothing is going to phase me whatsoever. And then you start realizing that you're making choices, and started compartmentalizing. I started compartmentalizing. Well, in my private life, I had made one choice. In my professional life, other choices. And I justified that in my private life, I could allow myself these things, which was everything from honesty to integrity to trust, which I did not. What's the word in English? I did not give that back to for that matter, my wife. And then you start going, well, but I'm so trustworthy and have so much integrity on the business side. And I think that's a very basic example, but that was kind of for me the invitation. Oh my God, I'm like, on this side, I'm this person who pretends to be, and on this side, I am this person. And it just, at some point, it just really started hurting. But also external people would say to me, you know what, you're not really aligned. And I first didn't understand it, and that really got me to my personal journey of examining self-awareness. What does self-awareness really mean, right? How do I respond? Marshall Goldsmith, who just had his birthday a few days back, personal friend, and he's a coach. He's considered one of the top 50 thinkers in the world, or probably the number one 50 thinker for years now. He is somebody who, said to me years ago, he said, integrity is from a self-growth standpoint, if you have it, it's not something you choose or not. And it's that Japanese proverb where we wake up in the morning and we tell ourselves, well, there's three phases we have. One phase is for family, one phase is for business, and one phase is that face that looks at you every single morning. It's kind of like when we turn Zoom on the first time, right? We look at ourselves and we go, that phase knows exactly what we did or didn't do yesterday or this morning, or what we did, made choices that maybe compromised everything from our value system. So, and that's where I think, need to go here. Value system, also when you look at organizations. I mean, Enron was the perfect example. Gold sign in the lobby about honesty and truth and integrity. Well, we all know the Enron story, how much integrity and truth there really was in retrospect. And I think as human beings, we need to do exactly the same thing. Self-awareness is the number one growth catalyst. If I have awareness about my triggers, about how I respond to certain situations, and that maybe when I give a presentation, I know I'm shaking. When I give a presentation, I know I'm sweating. And it's like I have a client who is an amazing, amazing speaker. But he transpires to an extent that if he wears anything else but black, you can see it. And he has awareness and consciousness about this. So that means also his whole body language changes. Well, it sounds silly when I say this, but he wears black now. So he can sweat all day long. You don't see it. So he can actually move his arms and show the world who he is in all beauty and brilliance and everything else without having this program running. Oh my God, people are going to see that I'm sweating. And I'm like, but that's just for him. That's a usual body response in adjusting to an environment that he's exposing himself by choice. Nevertheless, we all get nervous when we speak. The greatest speakers in the world get nervous when they speak. And then I think the second part goes to, if we have self-awareness also about emotional triggers, how do we I call it pre-washing and post-washing, right? There's kind of this piece of, here's the action I'm taking, and I'm prepared to take action. And there's all kinds of ways we can prepare ourselves. Think of it like your own personal war room. Whoever you invite to this war room, that may be just you, that may be your best friend, your best man, your maid of honor, your lifelong boarding school friend. It may be very selective people who are in the industry where you meet with every quarter and you say, you know what, this is what we're thinking about. And I'm not talking about the board of directors here. I'm not talking about the board of advisors. I'm talking about the people who know you really, really well and who you can pull on the side and say, you know what, I have to make some choices here. It becomes kind of your personal consult group. And if you're thinking as, the other part, I think a lot of people say, well, when I get there, then I will be successful. And then they get there and they go, oh, that doesn't feel so different. Now I got to go there. It's this constant chase. Success is not a destination. I think success to me, and maybe it was, no, not maybe, 20 years ago was different. But today's success is a journey. It's an ongoing journey. And it's like this little boat you put on the water, right? Like a business plan. And then you put the business plan on the water. And then you go, holy crap, that wind's totally different than I expected it. We got to adjust. That's life. That's success. That's how we look at success. That's how we need to look at success. And I think if we hold on to the wrong definition, the wrong API, so to speak, of success, we let ourselves down.
And you brought up multiple great points, and there's so many ways and directions we can go with what you just said and dive deeper into it. And there are quite a few things I want to touch upon. And the first being your war room. What for you does that war room look like? And what are the kinds of conversations you're personally having in those war rooms that make you challenge your perspective?
Yep. Let me start, so first off, in my war room are 6 people. 2 people are strictly relationships I've built over the years professionally, and the rest are everything from friends that I mountain bike with to I recently got into pickleball, and I'm not afraid to say it, very competitive about it. And if you've ever played it, it can be fairly intense. And then the other part is soccer. So in my war room are people who I implicitly trust. I would trust them implicitly also with the life of my daughter and my dog. And that sounds silly. I mean, my daughter is in her early 30s now, but it's one of those things where that becomes kind of this piece, right? When you talk to a group of Marines, they will trust their lives and their wives' lives with them implicitly. There's no question asked. And I'm very, very similar feeling about this group. And what we talk about is, so we connect at least every couple of weeks, oftentimes on a Saturday morning. Oftentimes we go for breakfast together. And we are not just serving me, but we're serving each other as well, because it becomes a conversation of mutual exchange. And if you think about what's the difference between a coach and a mentor and somebody who's been there or is there, it becomes kind of that really multi-directional dialogue. Here's what I'm experiencing, if that's on the personal side, if that is on the romantic side, even partially, if that is things with my daughter, if there are things that are relatable. And your mentors and I think that's the other piece, you have to keep friends very, very close. And often, how many lifelong friends people have is maybe 4 or 5 if they're lucky. And I feel myself in that respect very lucky. But if we think about war room in a functioning basis, we also have to evolve that war room, because we are in different phases in our life. And maybe we need to add or eliminate one person or another and say, you know what, this has been amazing. You can stick around, but what I'm really seeking now is somebody who can point me in the direction of better, I don't know, a lot of people worry about financial management. Maybe it's somebody who's in financial management, who's made, a couple of $100 million in a sale of a company. Well, you want that person at the table when you're about to sell your first business, maybe, particularly if it's in a related industry. They can talk you through it. And that also oftentimes becomes a coaching conversation, right? The reason why people work with me, in particular people work with me, because I've sold 6 companies. And then a little bit more than a dozen years ago, I started Human Innovation Garage. So these are the kinds of things where relatable experiences and expertise, relatable emotional journeys, even if they've arrived at a completely different state of mind and state of affairs where you're at right now, but that trajectory, or even that looking back at saying, what's interesting, what you're doing over here, I love what you're doing, but that's not for me. Right? Maybe that's the other function as well of that war room. And really, being vulnerable about it. I think that's the biggest part. Trust is, trust is a big word. I think the 2 words which companies or success needs to be built on in any business is very simple. One is trust and the other one is empowerment. And if we don't have either, then I think we're not going anywhere. And in a war room, if there is no trust or confidence into the other person that they not just are who they say they are, but they've demonstrated, they've executed, and you have confidence that they can carry you into the direction that is giving you, for the sake of this podcast, let's call it giving you the direction onto success, whatever you define it at the time being. Well, then why are they in your war room? So I hope that explains a little bit, and feel free to ask more detailed questions.
No, that does. And I think one thing that you brought up and emphasized at the end that is really important for us to think about is the fact you have to be able to trust that person and rely on that person while also understanding that you can trust them and rely on them today and it can fit right now. But we all grow and we all change. So our perspectives can change and what you need today can change. And that doesn't mean, like you touched upon in that explanation as well, is that doesn't mean they are no longer a part of your tribe. It just means they're not in the war room with you. And I think we have to understand that someone who enters that war room today can leave, and it's okay for them to leave, whether it's your decision or theirs, because it's no longer fit. And that does not mean that they have to leave your life, that it no longer fits you. It just could look differently, and that's okay. And the second we say, no, they can't, then we're also hindering our own self-growth.
I would agree with you. Nevertheless, sometimes there is times in life where we need to set clear boundaries. And I think that's one of the pieces where people struggle quite a bit with setting clear boundaries and being able to say no. And I oftentimes say to my clients, and I say to people I meet, and I say it casually when I give a talk, challenge yourself to say 3 to 4 times no today. And then the traditional reaction of people is, oh, I can't do that. And I kind of go, why can't you do that? Well, because people expect me to say yes to everything. Yeah, well, exactly. That's your issue. Because you think that they expect you to say yes to everything. And I think when we start with a default of no and let me think about it, or no and let me get back to you, the moment I make a commitment out of those positions and then I say yes to it and I come back and say, you know what, I actually want to do this because I think it sounds really exciting, or I think I can really support you, or whatever that may be, the commitment I'm making is much more honest than this default, not really contemplated and conformative yes. Oh, yeah. Olivia expects me to say yes to that. Okay, I'm going to say yes to that. And 5 minutes later, I walk away and go, I cannot believe I just say yes to that. I got to now do this. And this afternoon, I'm already completely overwhelmed. And I'm like this. And I've got to go to the doctor. And I got to take my kids somewhere. People do this all the time, all day long. And if any of your listeners listen to that, just play yourself that exercise. Whenever you listen to this podcast going forward for the remainder of the day, say 3 times no. And you will see magic happening, because I think the reason why people, there's this old book and this old, we call it a methodology, inspiring without authority. And I'm sure you've heard that. And inspiring without authority is all about the law of reciprocity. If you do this for me, then I will do that for you. And I think we run that program all day long. But on top of that program, we're running, is it safe or is it not? And in context of corporate is, will I still have my job tomorrow or not? Oh my God. Well, because there's this threat level. And people don't talk about it, but we got to talk about it, particularly in 2024, right? And these are the kinds of things where individualism, personality, humanity, respect, trust, empowerment, and not empowerment because I have a policy that says you get to do. No, I've got to feel good about empowerment. I really get to make that decision in the most authentic and honest way as it relates to me. Yes, certainly I'm a steward of the organization, or my own business for that matter. Nevertheless, there's peace behind it when I make that decision, and it's no pressure and fear.
And I think that brings us to another great point of understanding your own boundaries and understanding your, like you had said earlier, self-awareness of when are the moments that we are feeling, whether we feel equipped to actually do something well and are prepared to perform that task and say yes, versus the times we don't, but we feel the need that we have to show up for everyone and just take it and say yes, even though we might be overwhelmed. We might have no business actually doing that task. And then you're setting yourself up for failure, and that brunt that might hit you, as well as the other person, where now expectations aren't going to be met. And so I think it's really important, based on what you said, to understand the boundaries you're setting, and that by saying yes to everything, you're also saying no to other things, like you had brought up, picking your kid up or going to that soccer game with your friends or going to your child's play that night because you're so overwhelmed, you inadvertently end up saying no to some things.
I think that leads me, if I may jump in quickly on this, is that fine?
Yeah, take it.
I think there's we we keep forgetting that the day has 24 hours. Newsflash, that's it. Not 24 hours and a minute or 5 minutes or 25 hours. It's just we have not quite figured out how to bend time. Although some people claim they have. And we also have a limited amount of energy. And if you think about like a pie chart of the energy you have 100% at the beginning of the day, you are the only person who can choose where you invest your energy. Nobody else. And I hate investing energy where afterwards I come out completely depleted, but not even by the result or impact. And I distinctly say result or impact and not goal, because I think goal is a stupid word in the American language. And I'll explain in a moment why. If the result or impact that I'm seeking is not kind of reflective of where I'm at and what I've been putting so much energy into it, I feel depleted. And for no good reason. And the reason why, let me go back for the goal piece, right? I compare goal always with this thing when you have two teams playing soccer. On both sides of the field is a goal. And that goal is, I think it's 214 or 210 by 7 meters. That's big, right? That's 21 feet and about 6 feet 10 high. And what's so interesting about it is when you have these two teams playing, let's say it's a final of the World Championship. Team number one shoots a goal. Germany shoots a goal. We haven't been in the World Cup final for a long time. But Germany shoots a goal, and then Brazil shoots a goal, and then Germany shoots a goal, and Brazil shoots one, and then Germany shoots two. Well, Brazil's going to go home and say, oh my God, we accomplished 2 goals. But here's the deal. In a year from now, nobody's going to ask how many goals really Germany shot or Brazil shot. Germany won the World Cup. That's impact. And it's not about stupid goals. I mean, the goals in the context of a soccer game are important. But I think we're so used to busy for the sake of being busy, checking boxes. Right? That's like leadership training is today in organizations. If you're a trainer, if you're an HR person, if you're a CEO of an organization, please look at that. Because leadership training today has become a checkbox. Oh, we're going to put our whole team through leadership training. And 3 weeks later, they're all going to be amazing leaders. No, it's not. Leadership training is not a training where you go to training, you get a certificate, you are a leader. It's like values are actions observed. Leadership training is a journey, is a lifelong journey, just like success. It is taking multiple pieces in. And so back to the goals, I think we check these boxes in business and we say, we did this, and this, and now we feel good about ourselves. Well, no, that's not the way it works. It's about what is the vision you have? Where do you want to be? How do you want to feel when you get to the other side? What's the organizational transformation you want to have? What is it, the vision you want to show people? How immersive are you going to make it? How participatory? That gives people a feeling of success, of participation. That gives individuals, me, you, anybody else, success feelings. And it's not about, well, when I arrive there, well, then just like parking the car in the garage. Okay, the garage door closes. Success. No. But some people think about it that way, I think.
And I think you touch on a great point too of checking the boxes. I think when people think of leadership, especially in how we've conformed the word to mean, you think of a management position. Oh, I'm in a position of leadership because I'm now the manager. Well, that's not true. And if we go through leadership training, as you had mentioned, and just check the box, now we're making everyone a leader. And not everyone is set up mentally or wanting to be a leader. And not everyone has that capacity to show up in that way. And I think when we start putting everyone through these one-day trainings of leadership or week-long trainings of leadership so that as an organization, we can check the box. We can say our employees went through this and now they're leaders. no, that doesn't make someone a leader. That gives them maybe things to think about, skills that you're helping to improve. But the second we start making every single person a leader, we're now diminishing what that really stands for and the people that really show those skill sets and can show up in that leadership way.
I love this. So I'm so glad you brought up that point, simply because I think we think about it like there's a lot of politicians, right? But if we go into the global stage today and we ask ourselves, how many statesmen are there? There are not a lot of statesmen alive anymore. And I think that's the same distinction between you can be a great manager on the line of GSD, getting shit done, and getting people to do stuff you tell them to do. That's not leadership. And there's a lot of leaders, and I remember this when I was running an organization in New York. There was a big union presence. And even though the individuals who literally were controlling the workforce, they were not designated leaders by the organization, by us, but they had all the influence they needed to make everything they wanted to happen because they were kind of the union leaders. Now, within the union, they were designated, but in the organizational level, they were not designated. But whatever they did, everybody watched. And whatever they said, do or don't do, everybody listened to. And if you look at your organization the same way, you will find people who are designated managers, which we like to call designated leaders. And then there is people who are undesignated leaders. And everybody watches these individuals. They listen to them. They're the one talking. They're the one, when they say something, everybody takes that message and carries it on, either in forms of execution or in forms of just mindset. And that's a very, very important thing to remember. And that's why I'm saying influencing without authority, that is being able to come to a human being and saying, hey, let me reframe this. Everybody listening probably can relate to that person where you go, oh my God, whoever they ask, maybe that's your friend when they go to a restaurant, they always get the table. Or that's your friend who has no reservation, but they go to the host stand and they always get the group of 4 or 6 people that table. Or it's the friend who goes to the bar and always comes back with a free drink from the bartender. Or it's the friend who always gets free parking in front of the luxury hotel when he or she pulls up with the car and asks the doorman if they can hold on to the car. And some of us get that done, and some of us pull up and try it, and the guy says, that's $36 the hour. The person who can get that done, that is a person who has an ability of creating that invisible trade exchange. Right? That's that reciprocity, because there's still a transaction happening, but for one reason or another, the way they're connecting with that individual is on a human level where both parties feel seen. And if we take Maslow in regards to the hierarchy of needs, and we look at how human beings seek to be belonging, but also the simplicity of feeling safe in a transaction, of, in that instance, a conversation, if we can establish that, that's a magical moment. And we miss those moments, and we don't recognize them, we don't acknowledge them, and we also don't take them as an inspiration for ourselves to say, oh my God, that's awesome. Good for them. We just get ticked off about it that we can't get it done ourselves, instead of taking it as a challenge and saying, let me really understand why they get this done and why I can't get this done. And it's something that, I mean, I'll tell you, my daughter still today at the age of 31 says, oh my God, I mean, we need a table somewhere. When we go with you somewhere, we're up in Vermont again, we go somewhere else, we go to New York, we go here, we go there. And I happen to, I don't know, I connect with people, and I can get the car parked in front of the building, and I can get my table, and whatever else it is. And my daughter today has turned into a person. She works coincidentally in a public company in human resources, and she is that person in the organization today who gets people without pushing them, in a gentle, considerate, empathetic way to do things that other people just don't. And I love that about her. And I'll take maybe 5% credit for it.
Just 5? I mean, you really helped shape her as an individual. I feel like you deserve more than 5%. But that being said, too, I think part of it lies in understanding how to connect with other people, not just in that way to get things done, but making them feel heard and seen. Sometimes it isn't about getting that task, right? Just parking the car. But when you go up to someone and you're able to have that quick conversation with them, right? They now feel heard and seen where a lot of other people might have not. So then when you then followed up with, hey, can I have a table for 4 people? I'm like in a bind or this and that. They're the first to then turn around and say, yes, I'll make it happen because you're showing up for them in a way that they need, but it isn't something that everyone is doing or something that is needed to be done in that capacity for them to do their job. And I also think a big part of it too is understanding how to communicate. And that is something you do in your retreats. And where did this idea of doing retreats and really spending that time challenging each other to show up and pivot, not just over time, but together in an environment over a short period of time that then they could take those tools and implement long term?
So, if I may just backtrack for one quick second, because as you were speaking and you were talking about this momentary exchange of communication, energy, and let's call it a transaction, whatever that may be. I think going back to the title of your podcast, Achieving Success. As human beings, we are neuroscientifically set up to catch people doing things wrong. Period. End of story. Because if I catch you doing something wrong and I respond to that and I say something, it makes me feel better because I get the dopamine hit. Because look at me, I know it, I just corrected you all day long. And we as a society, I think particularly as Western society, we have perfected that, right? I catch you doing something wrong. I point it out to you. I feel better. You got to say thank you to it and congratulations. What we don't do is, like that saying, no and boundaries, maybe also let's catch people doing things right. Let's celebrate success. And celebration is little successes, right? Success, again, is a journey. It's not the final destination. So it shouldn't say achieving success. Maybe it's for yourself personally, it's achieving successes. That's the pro of success, right? Mm-hmm. One success, multiple successes. Because what a success is to you, you have perfected doing X. Well, maybe I haven't. Maybe for me, the success is just that, I pick up a book and complete it, reading an entire book. Because statistically, people say, oh, I read this book, but they only read about 40 to 50% of it. And then they pick up the next book. And so maybe the success for me is I was on a flight and I read an entire book. It's about perspective. The perspective for me can be and should be, that's a success for me because I completed something. That's success. And I think sometimes we get aspirational, which is fantastic. And I think aspiration is important. But as you start tracking your progression, recognize to yourself and acknowledge, right? We talked about self-awareness earlier. What are these little successes that you have? And celebrate them and acknowledge them. And acknowledge and celebrate them with other people for them as well. And acknowledge it and let them know that you noticed it. Because I think oftentimes we also hesitate to say something to somebody because we're going, well, maybe they're going to be offended because that's just a little thing that they did. But maybe you don't know if that's little to them. Try it. Next time when you see that, try it. Say, you know what, that was beautiful. Oh, congratulations. I think that I'm not sure what that means to you, but I saw you doing this. And I think maybe, I just want to appreciate what you did and congrats. That's awesome. Whatever, I think we define success in our own lens. And my lens, your lens, anybody else's lens is fundamentally different. And I think being able to accept that, not just tolerate it, but accepting that. As a kind of a multi-diverse perspective is so important.
Yeah.
And I'll forget the second half. We rewound and you had a cue for me. Tell me.
It was about your retreats and how you with this idea and how you operate your retreats to really challenge individuals in that environment with the group of people.
Honest moment. It really came for me out of a retreat therapy I was in for marriage therapy. And I was there for multiple days and I'm going, oh my God, this is intense. And at that time, I think what I was really thinking is, oh man, that kind of sucked. But I also saw the transformation, and I saw the intensity of it. I saw the group. I saw the cohort. I saw the trust that was built. I saw the understanding, the empathy, and everything else that was built. And the diversity of background, and the diversity of experience and expertise, and the diversity, for that matter, in the corporate context now, the diversity of levels of success. And to a large extent, the conversation we had today about how do you define success, that's the conversations we're having. Because it becomes about vision, it becomes about values, it becomes about mindset. And then it becomes about practice, right? Inspiration, motivation, creation of habits, rituals. How do you execute it ultimately? How do you keep yourself on track? How do you hold yourself accountable? How do you go out every single day and have a particular, I call it a protocol. And the guy who is world renowned for the protocol book is the 5 a.m. Club, Robin Sharma, right? He talks about 20 at 5 a.m. It's the 5 a.m. Club is the book called, if anybody of your listeners has read it or heard about it. What it's about is about 20 minutes of meditation, 20 minutes of working out, and 20 minutes of either listening or writing to something that is inspirational, or writing yourself in form of journaling. And journaling is a huge factor of a daily practice. Gratitude. 2 to 4 weeks, you are a happier person. That's proven, because you're going to an abundance mindset, right, versus a scarcity mindset. It's a subconscious, but it's a subconscious switch, but a conscious choice by doing it. And so that's what this is really about. It's about giving people an example. So Friday, it's laissez-faire. They show up, we do our thing, they lose their telephones. We have somebody there who takes calls, so there's a general number if there's an emergency. But other than that, they're completely disconnected. It's a half a digital detox as well. And the first morning is difficult, so kind of between arrival and between Saturday morning. But once they're in session, by the time Saturday afternoon comes along, and cooking and everything else starts, where we go to a market shopping, and then with a chef, everybody cooks together, and it's just very social also after a day of intense reflection. And we have scientists there who talk about neuroscience. We have people there who are, if we have, for example, athletes there, they will talk about their mindset of training for the Olympic Games, the discipline they had to develop. But also, what is a athlete's mindset? So, for example, an exercise of training and recovery. But if you are looking at an athlete, you're training all year long, and then you have 5, 6, 8 major competitions a year. That's it. And at that moment, you go all out. And then you're back in recovery. Even if you're a sprinter, if you've ever done wind sprints, it's kind of like you sprint out the 100 meters if you're on a 400-meter track, the 100 meters, and then in the turn, you are slowing again. You're kind of jogging along. Then you come out and you do it again. Growth happens in recovery. Growth does not happen by going and going and going and going and going. And I think people think, I got to go and go and go, which goes back to that checking the boxes, checking the goals, checking this. No. Give yourself some space. Give yourself some room. Give yourself some space. May mean time. Space may mean better time management. People suck with time management. And I don't care at what level. I have yet to find one person who cannot improve their time management. I can probably do better than I do today. But I'm very belligerently focused on Sunday night. I sit down. I lay out my weeks. I call it a life design schedule. I write down the people I want to connect with today, the top actions, the 3 top priorities, and my schedule. And I have blocks on my calendar. My iCloud calendar is I think I have 12 different calendars on there. One is for workout, one is for meditation, one is for time with internal, external time, meeting time, call times. And there's different ways how people do it. I know somebody who says, all creative time is green on my calendar. All work time is red on my calendar. All time that is family time is yellow. I don't know what all the exact colors are. But whatever works for you and gives you that visual cue also to say, I'm accountable to myself to follow this protocol, and that protocol works. It's a life changer.
And I love that. And I think it is so important to have your own checks to say, am I holding myself accountable? Am I getting these things done? Am I having that balance that I'm looking for as well. It doesn't have to be, again, back to a big conversation you and I've had today, is it isn't necessarily about having the balance that others deem we need to have, but having that balance that we deem we
That's
need to have.
It's the sentence that comes to mind here is, I love when people, and I say to people all the time, I love when people come up to somebody and said, I need you to do this because it's better for me. I'm sorry, what? Because it's better for you, I need to do this? I don't think that's the world in the universe works. But if I come to you with the same request, but I'm being vulnerable about it, and I'm saying, Olivia, when you do this, it makes me feel really upset. I'm not telling you what to do. I'm giving you the choice. Do you want to accommodate that or not? Right? It's like even in interpersonal relationships. If you come to somebody, your partner, your wife, your spouse, your significant other, and you say, "Hey, when you do this, it makes me feel like shit. I need you to change this." Well, that doesn't really work. Just use the first half of that. You know what? When you do this, that makes me feel upset. Leave it at that. Because at that moment, if you pause, you're going to have a dialogue. If you don't, you got a problem in your relationship probably. And that's a whole other conversation. I'm not a marriage therapist or a couples therapist, but I think that's in any interpersonal relationship, the respect we got to give each other and the inclusion of how do we come to a decision is, accomplishing great team dynamics. If you're a manager looking to become more influential in the direction of leadership, and you make step 1, step 2, and you kind of feel that resonates more with people, well, that's success. That's your journey to success. That doesn't mean, you're already president and CEO of the entire group. But these are things which are magical. Inclusion and the way you include yourself into an organization. As a perfect example, and some of your listeners may have seen it, I had the privilege years ago to meet Bracken Darrell. Bracken Darrell was the CEO for Logitech, who made Logitech what it is today over the last 15 years. And he just recently accepted the position to take over the company, which is the chair company for North Face, Vans, and everything else, VF. And he has this, and he posted it on LinkedIn. You can probably find it. He is giving up his corner office. He goes, I think the quote is, I have this beautiful corner office, absolutely magical. I'm overlooking the mountains. I'm overlooking this and this and that. The closest person to me 40 feet away is my amazing assistant, but nobody else is around me. So as of this week, as we're speaking here, he's actually giving up his corner office because he wants to be in the middle of the floor and he wants to be connected to people, because that's how creativity, innovation, inspiration, that's how it happens. Because having met Bracken, the way he speaks to people, the way he also, when you see his writing on LinkedIn, when you look at the way he implies people to innovate without telling them what to do, is absolutely magical. There's no doubt in my mind about it. And there's absolute clarity why he does that. And he knows it. He's learned it. And that's the kind of thing where you think about, you're going, oh, okay, that's success. It's not about, climbing Mount Everest in one day. Some people, they just know when they plan climbing Mount Everest, it's base camp 1, base camp 2, base camp 3, base camp 4. And the one thing they don't forget is that they got to buy all the stuff, ship it over there, buy the ticket to fly to Nepal, get to Kathmandu, etc., etc. Maybe that first step already for them, that they make the commitment to go there, that is success. I have a client who's running is it the Boston Marathon? One of the marathons. It's a Boston Marathon, yeah. And he's based in Austin. He's like all excited. Now, for him to make the commitment to actually run that and register, well, that's a big deal. That's success. Now, is he a runner? Yes. Has he been running a lot recently? Yes. Until 6 months ago, not so much.
Mm-hmm. And I think, too, it's one thing, and you brought this up throughout the stories you've just told, but it's giving someone else the ball to make the decision, right? You're not saying you're cutting them off or you're not doing this or whatever it might be, but it's saying, this doesn't work for me. And I'm showing up, I'm telling you this doesn't work for me. And let's have the dialogue. And then if you don't agree or you continue these actions, then I have every right to walk away because I've already made it clear of my feelings on this. And now I've given you the decision to say, okay, is this worth changing or
Yep.
showing up the way that person needs me? Or should I just keep doing what I want?
Well, I think you're bringing up an interesting point just in human accountability. I think we need to, from a standpoint of setting expectations, holding people accountable, and also letting people know what the consequence will be. I think that's an important part. I think what I would invite people not to do is just to say, well, you know what, that doesn't work for me, I'm going to walk away. While I think we all have been in situations and are in situations where we just want to do that, I think that's not part of our own journey, and it's not helpful to us personally, but it's certainly not helpful for the relationship nor the person that's on the other side or the group. Because you never know, you're affecting one person. Sometimes it's 1-to-1, sometimes it's 1-to-many, sometimes it's many to one. And I think there is a, patience is a whole other piece, and patience is a whole, conversation on itself. And I think as long as it's like Einstein, right? Doing the same thing and expecting different results. Well, that doesn't happen. So I think if there's there's this book which many of you have all heard about, is called Start With Why, and it's a book by Simon Sinek, who became famous through the Golden Circle, which is what that book is based on in regards to the why, the how, and the what. And one of the three things that he talks about in the book is clarity, consistency, and discipline. And I think one of the things we oftentimes do, and I've just had this conversation earlier in this week, I was giving a talk west of Boston for a leadership team. There was about 25 people in the room, and we were spending a morning together, and we were talking about setting context in regards to when people don't get done what they asked them to do. And I said, what do you 90% of the time recognize that when they don't get done what you wanted them to get done? And they were very honest and vulnerable in the room, and they said, yeah, you know what's actually true. I mean, oftentimes I recognize that I didn't explain it properly, or I didn't ask for the exact thing that I needed. So meaning we didn't set context. And I think that's the same thing here. Any human relation, anything we ask people, invite people to do, or have somewhat of that indirect request or desire, if we're not clear what we're wanting, we, as the people asking, well, how are they supposed to actually get clarity on what they're supposed to do? I mean, that's like useless. And so I think that's the piece where we got to be going back to, self-awareness. Am I really clear the way you said it early on, the way I'm communicating? How am I communicating? I mean, communication, 80% is body language. Let's not forget that. It's like nonverbal communication. It's not about what I say. It's where I say it, how I say it. What's my body language? What's my fidgeting around with my hands? I mean, if I'd be doing this the whole time of the conversation, Mickey, what do they call it? Mickey Mouse hands, jazz hands. It make everybody crazy, but also, there's all the little more subtle things we do. Eye contact. Is our shoulder when we have a conversation with an individual turned to them, etc., etc. I mean, conversation, meaningful conversation to some people, when somebody comes to them and has a meaningful conversation with them, particularly if that's a person of influence or a leader they really respect or a role model, to them having that conversation with you, that's maybe a success. They feel good about it. They go, oh my God, Olivia just talked to me for like a half hour. That's amazing. So I feel seen. Mm-hmm. To them, that is success.
And I think that's a great way to wrap up and really leave our listeners with some things to think about on how to show up and what that could also mean to other individuals and the impact you can have on other individuals and what they can identify as successful landmarks that even you might not think means the same success, and to understand that. And that being said, Stephan, how can people get in touch with you if they want to connect with you?
The two easiest way is LinkedIn. Search my name on LinkedIn. Feel free to connect. And then the other part is my website, which is stephantheringer.com. We also have humaninnovationgarage.com. Either one will bring you to the ultimate same destination. There's two sites out there, and would love to connect. And if I can be of any service and support, certainly reach out.
Thank you, Stephan, for all of your insight today.
Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure being with you, Olivia.
It was a real pleasure for me having you on, and there were so many good takeaways and thought-provoking ideas and things we can all implement today and moving forward that you brought up. So I really enjoyed it. And a few of those key takeaways from today's conversation is ask yourself, are you personally or professionally aligned? Meaning, are you keeping yourself accountable in both aspects? Like Stephan had mentioned, are you showing up? Are you being ethical? Are you being kind in both areas? Are you aligning, or are you putting each of those in different categories? And if you are, why is that? And how can you get realigned? As well as integrity is something it isn't something you choose or not choose. It is something you just do. And I think that's really important, is you have integrity. It's not something you can wake up on a Tuesday and go, today I'm not going to have integrity. And then wake up on Wednesday and say, okay, today I will have integrity. It's something you do. As well as challenge yourself to say no 3 to 4 times a day. I love this challenge that Stephan has given all the listeners to do today, because it is really important to say no to things and use your voice when you're not comfortable doing things, if you're overwhelmed, if it's not within your wheelhouse, or if it is and you just are not going to be able to do it, say no. So start to challenge yourself to say no 3 to 4 times a day, and start to challenge others to do the same. As well as, let's celebrate not just the mistakes other people make and point those out, but celebrate not just for yourself, but others, those small successes that you have throughout the day, throughout the week, and recognize that. Because like Stephan said, it might not be a success that you deem successful, but it might be a really big success for that person sitting across the table, and they would love the recognition. As well as, growth happens in recovery. So understand that, like Stephan said, you can't just keep moving and expect growth to just happen. It is taking that time to sit back, see what's working, what's not working, understand the process you've been going through to really be able to grow as well. This was a great episode with our top-notch guest, Stephan Thieringer. Thank you for listening, and have a successful day.